All right, everybody, we got 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Once again, thanks for coming here. My name is Nori Neinkirchen. I am an implementation specialist here at Smart Service, a trainer. I'm also joined by my fellow trainer, Jess Spalding.
Hello.
And today we're going to be going over some of the features that you may have missed from recent versions, and also a couple cool things we think everybody should know about in the program. Now, before we get too far in, if this is your first time at a webinar, definitely feel free to show up to more of these. These are good broadcasts that we do here. The topics that we go over is something that you guys choose for us. We do one the first Thursday of every month, so it's definitely good stuff. Definitely show up to them. You can see all of them at smartservice.com/webinar if you want to see the rest of these or sign up for the next one. The video, if someone can't make it to this, is usually available 24 hours after the live broadcast, so sometime around this time tomorrow, we should have a copy up. So if you find something useful in this and you want to review that information or you want to show this to somebody else, definitely check out that website there and you'll be able to grab a copy off YouTube of this video. Next up, we got questions. We want you guys to ask questions. Jess and I basically prepare a list of a couple topics there. We try to leave them a little open-ended. That way anybody can ask questions about whatever part they want. On the right-hand side of your screen, there's a chat panel. Definitely ask those questions. If they come up, we'll be answering those live over the broadcast. So if you got anything, speak up. We want to hear from you. And then lastly, I do want to reiterate again here, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit at the end of the webinar as well. Suggestions. I want you guys to tell us what you want us to cover. I've been looking at the numbers here for what we've had the last couple webinars, and roughly 1.7% of the audience makes a request for what they want to see next month. We, like I said, completely base this topic off of what you guys want to hear. If there aren't too many people voting, odds are your topic's going to get in there. I would like to see a lot more people vote so we can go with, whatever's going to be the most popular and bring the most people. This is something that doesn't cost you guys any money to show up to. It's totally free. It's basically a free training class. Really, we charge $159 for those. Definitely come in, ask questions, get the free training class out of this. Tell us what you guys want to talk about. But that out of the way here, let's go in and take a look at what we're going to be covering today. So like I said, these will be things that are usually missed by customers or forgotten about after your first training class. They're things that are valuable. They're things that come up in help desk calls all the time, and everybody's like, wow, that's neat. Wish we knew about that sooner. Well, this is your chance to get in there, learn about some of these things you might not have looked at after your initial rollout of, how to schedule and the basics of Smart Service. But you guys paid good money for this product. Get the most out of it. Let's go and talk about what that most would be. So one of the first topics that we're going to go over here will be the waiting list. The waiting list is going to be where we would put jobs if we can't schedule those. So I want to go ahead and take a look at that, look at how we manage those things, and a couple other features. We've recently redone the waiting list. So those of you who looked at the waiting list, a couple months ago, whole new thing now, a lot of great options, a lot of options that you guys asked us for. So we'll go over that. We've got the pricing preferences for customers and employees. So one thing that we did, Jess, what would you say, 6 months ago? It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a few updates back.
Yeah, is that pricing preferences section there. You guys can change the preferences between your customers and your employees. So I want to go ahead and talk about that and kind of give a little more light to how that works. Once we're done with that, we're going to talk about emailing and texting job reminders. Now, I will tell you up front, emailing job reminders comes with the system. You can set it up today after you watch this video. Texting job reminders is a paid add-on. I'll definitely mention that again, as with any paid add-ons that we ever cover in the webinars. We like to tell you guys that up front, but we'll go over those two options. Texting employees, that's something that comes with the software that doesn't cost anything to do, so we'll get into that. The mass rescheduling of jobs. This would be if you have somebody that's out sick for the day. I want to talk about that part. I also want to go ahead and talk about if we lose an employee, how we move all of their appointments to the next employee or somebody else in the company. So there'll be two functions there. One's just for like I said, like a day or a week or something, and the other one is permanent. So I'll go over those. Once we get done with that, we'll go over our contact search filter. Basically, that's going to be how you guys can find mistakes that are entered into Smart Service. I get it. We're typing stuff in as fast as we can, get these customers off the phone, get services scheduled and all that. There are going to be mistakes that people make, typos and stuff like that. We're going to show you how to find those and then get those corrected That way you have nice clean lists of city names and job types and all that stuff. So we'll take a look there. And then the last thing that Jess and I had on our list is something that we haven't covered before in any webinar, and that is the mobile workforce tab. A lot of folks generally shy away from this one because it's got a bunch of stuff in it and it looks like it's not really made for you. Well, there's some cool stuff in there you can use to track your employees, see what they're up to and all that. So we want to spend a little bit of time elaborating on mobile workforce and the specifics of how that tab works. But all right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring you guys over into Smart Service here, and we're going to take a look at the waiting list functionality. So let me move the screen over for a moment. All right. And it looks like we're having an audio issue for Sarah. Can you let Sarah know to turn on her computer speakers there? Thank you.
I got you.
All right. So while we're going here, the waiting list, like I said, is an old feature. It's something that we've definitely had out for a long time in the software. But I want to show you guys the new waiting list. So it used to be you had a button at the top middle over here by the print button at the very top. You used to have a waiting list option. That has moved. So that's moved down here to the bottom of the screen. You got an option that says view waiting list, this little blue bar. If I click on that blue bar, it'll open up the waiting list. Click on it again to close it. If we got the bar open, on the left-hand side, this little hamburger button here, you can grab that, move that up and down to adjust the size of the waiting list. If you get more things on the waiting list than you have space for, then it'll give you a little scroll bar on the side. So if we put more jobs on here, you get a scroll for it. Other than that, you've got the work orders button and the quotes button. So work orders are going to be the things that I'm actually doing. So those are my service calls and all that stuff. Things I couldn't schedule yet, I'll put them down here. But I also have a quote section for any quotes that are waiting. That might be we're waiting to hear back from that customer. That could be we're waiting to see who can do this one. So we've separated your work orders from your quotes, which is good. Now you have separate little trays for those. A couple things that I know a lot of customers definitely asked for in the past would be on the right-hand side here, this column customizer button. So if I click on this, this lets me pick and choose what I'm going to see on the waiting list. So you can see my available columns. Those are things I've hidden basically on the left there. And then we've got the selected columns, which is what I'm displaying on our waiting list down there. So you could come in here, you could pick out a field. Let's say alt phone, and we could go ahead and move that over. And I can move that up and down the list if I want to. If I save that, it puts that alt phone field in there. So you guys can pick and choose what you want to see in the screen. A couple other things that are really nice about this here. Of course, if you click on one of the headers there, you can sort it A to Z alphabetical. But inside of the headers, anytime you guys see this little caret option in here, and Jess will talk about this again here when we get to contact search, but you can click on these options here and you can sort things, or you can do like a text filter and say contains whatever value. You just type in something into the little box it gives you, and it'll try to find that on the waiting list. With that being said, those of you who have multiple sides of your business who are using class tracking, or those of you who, let's say you don't really deal with the installs, you just deal with the repairs or something like that, you can use this for your job type and your class. So you can get job type on here. I have job type on here. I showed you how to add class with that column customizer. But you guys can come in here and you can sort those A to Z or just say contains this option. These preferences that we're setting in here are limited just to your user profile. So if you want to filter down to a certain value, or you want to say, let's sort the list, so I have service calls on top or something like that, you guys can. That'll make it easier for you to do your part, for everybody else to do their part, because you all have the option to organize this waiting list. A couple other things on that waiting list, because we're not done with that just yet. You guys have this added to waiting list field. This is something new here. So this tells me how long these items have been waiting on the waiting list. If I come over here and I take one of these jobs, and let's say this one, I can't do it, I move it to the waiting list. I can move it to the waiting list here, or I can open it up. And inside of a job, under the scheduling tab, you have this job is on the waiting list button. So both of those things do the same thing. They both put it on the waiting list. When you click it, it'll tell you it's going to remove it from the calendar. That's what you want. And then it gives you that added to waiting list field. It automatically stamps that for you. That way, when we're looking at the waiting list, we can tell how long something has been waiting. So actually that one just popped up right there. Now, if I want to know why it's waiting, when I'm inside of the job, I have a little box here, and I can say, waiting on parts, or waiting to assemble a crew, or waiting for this customer to call back, or waiting for the city to approve our thing, whatever we're putting in. We get something in this box here. Go ahead and save that. Now, on my job down there on the waiting list, I have the reason for why it's waiting. This one here is ours that we just put in. So this will be nice for you because you can see how long it's been waiting. If you're waiting on parts, you probably have a PO number. That internal PO would be your purchase order. So when you get your parts in, you can look and see which one that was waiting on. And you can see we're waiting on parts. This one's waiting for a callback. This one looks like the guy stopped payment. We're not going to do anything else until we get paid again. So the waiting list has a bunch of functionality like that in there that's good for, just kind of sorting these things that are open-ended. With that being said, two other things about this waiting list before I hand things off to Jess. First off, if you guys come back here to dashboard, you can view all the jobs on the waiting list. There's like a bigger screen here that just shows you everything. So if you prefer to look at a whole screen view, you can look at them that way. You can run reports on jobs on the waiting list if you'd like to see it in a report fashion instead. But when we're talking about waiting list stuff, one big thing I want to get across to everybody, the waiting list is not for your preventative maintenances. Anytime we're going to do any PM service or like a quarterly, recurring service, you guys are going out there weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is. Anytime you guys are doing a service like that, you don't want the job on the waiting list, because for the same reason that when we put this job on the waiting list, like I said, it took it off the calendar. So if I go into that job, there's no calendars, there's no scheduling there. It's sitting on the waiting list. So it's an either or kind of scenario. If I put in, let's say, date and time to go out there, and I put it on a pattern. So we got all these dates in here, so it'd be on my calendar. If I put it on the waiting list, those go away. So keep that in mind. That's why we don't use the waiting list for any PM services or anything like that. It's not going to preserve that quarterly pattern or whatever we're doing on there. The waiting list, like I said, is very specific usage. For those who are looking for something to do similar to this, because you don't want to really confirm your quarterly maintenance visit or something like that. That's why, and you can see this in previous webinars, we have this unassigned employee. If I put a job here, it will give me, and let's go ahead and do one actually. So let's take it off the waiting list. We'll go ahead and give it to today. And it'll be this unassigned PM. So it's just a fake employee. Just make it in settings. Just use your profile, call it unassigned, or waiting jobs, or whatever you want to call it. And we can put it on a pattern. The whole idea here is that it has a due date for when we want to do this job. It just doesn't have a scheduled tech. And that way, when I'm on the calendar, I'll see that job on my unassigned. Hey, this guy's coming up for maintenance. Move them over. Next time they come up for maintenance, they show up there again. I can grab it. I can move it over to whoever can do it that time, and so on. So you can keep moving them like that, but at least that way, each time it shows up on the date it's due, it just shows up as unassigned. And like I said in previous webinars, there's plenty of coverage on that feature and why you'd want to use that over the waiting list. We're focusing more on the waiting list today, but I like to make sure I mention them both at the same time so everybody's getting everything down. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I had for the waiting list. I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Jess so he can cover his next topic with you.
All right,
Those pricing options. The shuffle.
Okay, so some of you are already probably familiar with this functionality. You'll have some different options for what you can do for the pricing for customer visibility versus what your technicians are able to see and do there from their iFleet devices. So for this section, if you don't have access to the settings area of the program, you will not be able to change these options. So this is something that, it's typically set up by like an admin. If you don't have, settings available to everybody in the company, which is what we advise, you want to limit that so people don't go in here and start making changes without any kind of input from the rest of your team there. But you're going to have a few different sections in here that you can adjust different pricing preferences. So you can do this on your estimate section here. So you'll have the employee pricing and customer pricing preferences here at the top, as well as over on our work order settings as well. So previously we had a couple of checkboxes that you could use in here. They weren't kind of broken down for technicians versus customers. So we've expanded on this here in one of the more recent updates that we've released to give you guys more flexibility on this. Now, this isn't necessarily always going to solve everything that you need, so keep in mind that we do have some template forms on our knowledge base if you need to have certain customers being able to see certain levels of pricing information, and other customers need to be able to see something else. So you can find those on the knowledge base there by searching for PDF integration. We've got a couple of free copies of those that you guys can use. But in terms of what we've got in here, you've got the employee pricing preferences. So you have the first drop down here. That's going to be for whether or not that employee is able to see itemized pricing. So just for definitions here, we've got itemized pricing, meaning the technician is going to see the item name, the description of the item, the rate that we're going to bill the customer at per item, and then they'll also see the amount. So if you've got a quantity of 2, it'll add that all together and get it all put together. And then you'll also see the total information, so subtotal, taxes, and then the full total, including those taxes if you're a taxable person. So that one is kind of full visibility. Your technicians would be able to go in and modify the rates and amounts for that line item that you're going to be sending over into your QuickBooks on your invoice or leaving on the document you leave with your customer. So itemized is going to be full visibility. And then with lump sum pricing, you're going to have the same item and description information that you have visible to your technician. But instead of them being able to adjust things like the rate and the amount, they're just going to see the total and subtotal information for this particular set of items that they're looking at. So this is good for situations where maybe we always quote out our work, so the office where your estimator sets your pricing information, and we don't want the technician adjusting that. So you do have that option there for the lump sum choice. And then following that, you have a no pricing option. So let's say you do, again, more quoting side of things, and you don't want the technicians adjusting information, or you're working with like commercial customers and they have like a set price for everything that you're going to be working off of, and the office is kind of defining this. So they'll see the line items, item name, and the description, but they don't see the rate, the amount, or any of the total information when they're looking at their iFleet device there. So you can adjust these. This is kind of a system-wide setting, so all your iFleet users are going to have this setting for whatever you put in here. And then below that, you'll have the quantity option. So quantity is going to be used, and it can be used on all 3 of these different pricing variants. That's going to let your technicians adjust however many fittings they used, or if they use multiple filters or multiple bags of mulch when you're out doing lawn care stuff. So this is something that, if you want them to be able to adjust that sort of information, we can check this box off, and then that gives them the freedom to make those changes as they need to. But for the employee pricing, again, that's going to work both on the estimate level and the work order level. And those terminologies could be different for you depending on what your industry does and what your company does. But you can have those set up separately. So your estimator is going to adjust pricing information, and then your technician going out into the field, maybe wouldn't be able to do that. So that'll give you some flexibility there.
And just I have a question on that. So does this affect what my office users will see?
It does not. So your office users are always going to be able to see the pricing information from the, the job level. So when you're in there making your job, you can go into your job item section and make adjustments to things as you need to. So one thing with that, it's important to note that, when you're going through your process at the end of the day there to do your invoicing, you want to make sure that you make any of those adjustments before you push to QuickBooks, so your history is all accurate here. Just kind of as a little side note there outside of this topic. But yeah, so good question. Our next stop is going to be our customer level pricing preferences. So you have the same types of options here. So the itemized option is going to show the customer the item name, description, rate, amount, and then the subtotal, tax, and total information for that set of items on their work order or their estimate. And then you'll also have the lump sum option here. So again, if you don't want them to see all the breakdowns, so maybe you shouldn't show them, how much you're billing them directly for labor or something like that. You want them to just see like the total for everything involved for that service. So you can turn on lump sum. They'll see the item name, description, and then the totaling information. And then coupled with that, if you're not wanting them to see breakdowns of things like labor or the number of parts you used, you can uncheck their quantity information. So they would just see, the rates and the amounts there, and then they would not see anything else potentially. And then no pricing is something that we typically see a lot more with commercial accounts that you guys work with. So With a commercial account, you're probably not going to be collecting payment while you're out in the field or anything like that, so you won't need to show the customer any pricing. It's really just a document for their records so that they know what you guys did. So if you turn this setting on, the customer sees no pricing information whatsoever. And then you can also remove your quantity information if you need to. But for these different setups here, as I'd mentioned, you do have some access from the knowledge base. If you go there and you search for your PDF form integration, you'll be able to find some pre-made templates that match what iFleet uses as its standard document. And we also offer customization for forms. So if you need any kind of customization, going to that same PDF integration portion of our knowledge base is going to give you the steps to get your customized forms created there.
And I'd also like to point out on that PDF form integration, one, you have your default forms that Jess is talking about. So you can basically, instead of having this one work order preference here, you can set it up, and there's a video on this that's in there, not only showing you how to make the PDF form, but how to use the ones that are listed on that same page. But you can basically replace our forms with your own form. That's really what those free ones that he's talking about are for, is just to tell you, hey, you can have it so it pops up with these three and you pick the option that you want. If you guys go there and you watch the video, you'll understand how to set those up and how to get them on and off the device and manage everything. So it's kind of an all-in-one article there with a video that shows you the process in iFleet. And it's also got the PDFs on there. And then just whenever you're done, for Jamie, can you bring up that site for him so we can show him?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Before I do that, though, I do want to touch on two other pricing preference options that you have in here that you can adjust if you need to. So the first one is going to be down here in the defaults. This one is going to be an office level setting. So it's this enable cost and gross profit. So if you just want to be able to see rates and amounts, you're not doing like costing or anything like that, you can turn this off. That way the office users don't accidentally put in something in the wrong field there. And I can show you here once we finish up the other tab that I want to look at here with you. So you have this option for the office to disable that cost information. So cost is what you're paying a vendor versus rate, which is what you're charging a customer. You also have a similar set of options down here in your iFleet settings. So you've got your hide cost on line items for the job and the quote here. So you can check these off if you don't want your technician to see that kind of information as well. So it's definitely important that we kind of outline that a little bit. So you do have a couple of other preferences here. Keep in mind that cost information is never going to be shown to your customer unless that's something that you put into, like the notes or something like that, if you need to show your customer that kind of information. So, but let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up a new tab here. So, new window, Smart Service Knowledge Base. And once we get over there, you can search for PDF integration. And then click on that. So this is going to be the link that you'll need here. So at the top of the screen, I'll leave that set up there for right now so you can see it. But we go over a little bit of information about what these are used for. Then you have your video on creating your custom iFleet forms. And then we go into the description of how this process works. So these are billable services. So if you guys can script us to do this work for you, it is something that you would have to pay for there. So just keep that in mind. We have those sample forms that you guys can utilize that don't really need any kind of adjustments made usually, but those are all down here towards the bottom of the screen. And before I move on down here to the requesting work section here, it's very important to know that there is a distinction between an iFleet form and a Smart Service form. So if you need something you can print from your office that you don't need your technicians using, those are a separate type of form. So if you needed to have matching forms in the office and out in the field there for something like that, we would need to set up a Smart Service form for you as well there. So keep in mind you have a PDF and then you have your custom work order option in Smart Service too. But go ahead.
On that note, folks, I did want to answer a couple quick questions here that are popping up. So Jamie, this is the site that you asked for there. So I brought that up for you. Vic asked if we could go over the process for creating those PDF custom forms. You know what, Vic? I think that's a great idea. why don't you, at the end of this webinar, go ahead and suggest that to us in that suggestion section that I was talking about. We did one a few years ago. We brought Taylor back in here. We had a great time covering those kind of forms and stuff like that. I'm sure he would love to come back again here, and we can make a more updated version with the new fields, because we've added some new things to those since that time.
Yep.
So when you leave the webinar today, Vic, go ahead and make that as a suggestion, and we'll throw it in there for something to cover in the next webinar. I can't do it today really because it's about an hour process, to be honest with you. It takes us 2 to 3 hours to create them. So, but I would definitely like to do it again, make a more updated version for everybody. So if anybody else has that suggestion, put it in at the end.
Yep. Now, any other questions that you wanted to look at there before we move on into the?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, excuse me. A couple of things on there. So I got some folks asking about the summary sheets and stuff like that. So as far as I know, and we can double check to make sure, but as far as I know, the settings that we have in there do not change the summary form, correct?
Correct.
Just the work order.
You can do customization for the summary form, but it is something that we would need to have you request and go through that process for.
Yeah, so for those of you who are asking, can I add something to the summary form? Adriana, you asked, can you add a note to that summary sheet? Those notes, I believe the notes do show up, the job notes on the summary sheet already. So put that in job notes. For Angela, who's asking if those preferences strictly affect the work orders. Yes, Angela, the pricing preferences that just covered are just the work orders, just the smart service stuff. It doesn't change anything at all in QuickBooks.
Correct. Yeah. But last little piece here that I want to run over with you here, the requesting custom work section here. So this will give you a full detail of what happens when you need to have custom work done. So if you have Gmail accounts, you can use the first link here. If you're a non-Gmail user, you can go to the second link here, the orange buttons here, and that'll get you started on the process there. So you're gonna want to provide samples for what you need, and descriptions and things like that for the person that's going to help you do this process. The more information that you can give us up front means a smoother transition into you guys getting the live form at the end there and having what you guys were looking for. So just kind of keep that in mind. You'll want to make sure that you have all your information gathered together. That way there's no need for changes down the road, unless it's something with like a state agency or something like that that has to change. So just kind of keep that in mind. You'll go here to the smartservice.com/knowledge base/article/PDF-form-integration. And then that'll give you all these details that we just covered here with you. And then down at the bottom, again, you have your free forms that we offer. So you have your standard document. So that's the one that iFleet automatically generates for you. Then you've got your different pricing preference options. If you do any kind of after hours work there, you'll also have that option. And then you'll have a form where you can just have a bunch of photos on it, basically. So you can just kind of as a note with a custom form, you can have pictures inserted in there, and that way you can send those over to the customer so they can see them kind of right away there. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I've got for you here for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do the shuffle again over here to Nori, and he's going to take you through the email job reminders and texting job reminders functionality.
All right, so we got that there. Okay, so I'm going to go over our email job reminders there next. So the next thing we're going to talk about here, we're going to go into Office screen. We're going to talk about some of these options in here. I've got an email job reminders and a message job reminders. The email job reminders, like I said, is something that comes with the system. You guys can set it up right now if you follow along with me here in the next couple of minutes. The message job reminders is for text messaging. That's something that you want to email the desk about if you want set up. Basically, we can either do emails, which is great for commercial businesses and stuff like that. You guys check your email, but a residential customer probably not going to check their email, honestly. So we have the message alternative. But like I said, the message one does cost. I want to be upfront about that. But if you ask us, we'll give you, how that all works. But I want to cover email job reminders here primarily today because that's something everyone can use. So what this does for you is I can come into this screen. I can pick an employee, one employee or all of my employees, and I can pick a date range of their services. So I'm just going to bring up some stuff here. I don't think we have anything that old, actually.
Yeah.
probably be for today, wouldn't it? Let's do, let's go for all of February. Nope, we don't
Not
have
on the
anything for
list.
that. Let me get down there to our February stuff.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Let's go to here and let's get a couple more. Okay, there we go. There's a good list. So what I did there was I pulled up basically a list of jobs for like this week or whatever range you want to target. And all these people in here have these different jobs for me. If I want to message them and let them know, hey, you got a service coming up, or hey, I need you to do this or that before your service, or whatever it may be, I'll go ahead and do that via this section here. Now, the way that this works is all I have to do is pull up my list and really just hit email all at the bottom, and that would email everybody in this list. But what are they getting? What does that email say? Well, that is based off of what job type you gave them and what template you have set up for that job type. So really, this is kind of the end process. These guys have been put on the schedule. We already got, what kind of service we're providing and stuff like that. It's just a reminder in this case. If we had an unassigned employee with a bunch of stuff on it, we could pull up him to see when these people want to schedule this. If they were all still in the unassigned column, maybe you do that for the next month or so. Everybody unassigned, email them, see what they want to do. But regardless, if you want to set up the templates for these, what we want to do is go back here to our dashboard. Now, all of you will have access to the settings tab. So if you click on this and it opens up blank, that just means your user doesn't have the permission to look at settings, which is okay. Just ask somebody that does. It'll usually be your office manager or something like that. But if they go in here to settings, on this first page that we're looking at, we can hit this Set Up Smart Service Add-ons button. So we'll go ahead and click in there, and we'll get this little window. And what you want to do in this little window here, you got a bunch of options for what you want to set up to email. We're going to focus on email job reminders. The rest of these buttons all work the same way. They all do the same kind of little thing here. But the message text that you get is dependent on the job type that we set up. So we would go ahead and select the job type out of our list. And then we would hit the edit tool to write something in. So I'll go ahead and click on edit. It'll ask me who the email is coming from. So that's my email. Put in a subject for what I want the email subject to say. And then the body of the message you just write out. But what if you want to personalize this a little bit? So we'll say hello. Well, I want to talk to this person by name. I want them to know that I know who they are. So I'll right click on it. And you get these different fields here. You can click on these. For example, we're going to do first name. And that's going to tell the program that when it goes to send this email, it should check for the customer's first name and attach that first name here in the email. That way it's not hello valued customer, it's hello and then their name. And you can do this with a number of different fields. You can do this with their name. You can do this with their address to confirm that, or their phone number to confirm that. If you want to do it with, the scheduled time, scheduled user is your tech to tell them, hey, it's Billy that's going to be coming out there. You guys can make that kind of stuff. You can also at the top here do your user definable field. So if you're storing something in there that you guys think is valuable, a lot of commercial folks would do something like, who called in this job that might make as a user definable field you could pull up. But you click on it here and it puts in that little code just like so. Very similar to like a mail merge. And then we'd, come in, we'd write our message with whatever we want to say. Now I've already got a couple of these built up. So I'm going to open up another one here just to kind of show you. Something like this would be great. Just a quick, simple message here. Hey, you got this upcoming maintenance. You want to go ahead and have their first name on there. We want to have the date just to confirm. Is this the date you want? Is anybody going to be there? And then let them know, hey, call us if you have an issue. Include your contact information. But once you have this template set up in here, and once that's ready to go, when we go to our email job reminders, any job with that PM type, that is what it's going to email to the customer, is that message. My repairs would get the other message. My installs would get another message that I had set up. You can copy and paste the message to the different blocks as long as you have one per each job type that you use. That's good enough. Basically, they don't all have to be super unique, but make a little message there that you guys want to send to them. And then you got a couple buttons in the screen for things you can do. You can include jobs with email only. That's checked by default. You can uncheck this option if you need to. Well, obviously, we're going to see some jobs that don't have an email. So now we got this guy. Can't email him. But we'll stick with our jobs with an email. Now, let's say you found one that doesn't have an email like we did there. Or, you got the wrong email or something like that. You can actually click on this little exclamation point over here. That will open up that job for you. If you make the correction here, it's going to correct it for basically sending out this reminder. If this is supposed to be the customer's email, though, let's say, then we want to use the copy data button down here to copy that email over to the customer once you fix it on the job. So keep that in mind. You repair an email here, it's just repairing it for this job, not the customer as a whole. But the point is, you get the emails on there, you make sure everybody has the correct email on file. If you hit the little mail buttons over here, it'll email just that one record, so you can do that to email those folks individually. You can also hit, or if this is hit right here, then that means it's already gotten an email. And then if you go to send an email, but you already sent one, and like if the little box is checked, it will tell you that. It'll say, hey, you're going to send a second one if you hit this again. Are you sure? But point is, come in here, pick out the stuff you want, hit the email all button. If you only want to do a certain amount of those jobs, we can filter down to a specific job type. You can also check and uncheck all the jobs over here at the left. So you just hit that little button there. That'll bring them up. The other option I want to talk about here is going to be under our office, and it's that text job reminders or message job reminders. Like I said, this is something that you guys would purchase. Very similar settings though. You're gonna open this up, same kind of window, same kind of setup. Back over here under settings, add-ons. You got that exact same stuff over here. We're just going to go to the texting tab. And in there, you got your job type. That's where you set up your note. So same kind of setup, whether you want to do text or email, that option is yours. Email comes with the software, text is an additional thing. The other email button I want to show you here real quick before I hand things back off to Jess is going to be, if we go to one of our, we'll just grab this customer. Inside this customer, you have an email button here. This would let you go ahead and email the customer as well. It doesn't do like a reminder or anything like that. It's just a blank email. So you come in here, you can write out a little message, but it will send through whatever email address you guys have set up with Smart Service, and the customer will be able to get that. Also, if you do these things, we do retain a copy of it in that correspondence folder for later. So you'll be able to see that you sent something. But that's pretty much it for that section there, folks. I'm going to go ahead and pass things back over to Jess, and we'll continue on through the things. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask them. Definitely want to hear from you guys here. I'm getting some questions off and on, but if you got anything else that comes up, speak up.
Definitely. Now, the next piece that we're going to be looking at here is going to be your options for text messaging your employees. So you're going to, again, have basically two options for this. The one that I'm going to be able to showcase for you today is going to be using the add-on that you can pick up. But you do have some additional choices if you guys don't need, full-fledged texting abilities to send text messages to your customers and things like that. If you just want to use the functionality that you have with Smart Service without picking up the new modules that we offer for that, you will have some options for it. So just kind of keep with me here. So we're going to go back to our settings section here, just to kind of go through the setup for this. So we can go into employees. And then once we go in here, let me find myself. So I think I'm listed as a technician. Open up my profile. So inside of here, you're either going to see this SMS num. That's going to be if you have the text messaging functionality module enabled. If you have just the base level stuff there, you're going to see text address. And all you have to do for either one of these, specifically on this one, you'll type in your phone number. It'll auto format for you. When you have the text address option here, you're just going to type in the numbers minus the 1 at the beginning there. So just the first 3, second 3, and then the last 4. You don't have to do any kind of formatting on this. And then you also have like a little red check mark next to that. That's going to let you see a list of potential carriers that you might need to use. So on the knowledge base, you have an entire list of all the different SMS and MMS availabilities there for the different carriers. So if techs are using like their own personal cell phones or something like that, you'll probably need to get with them to figure out what that is from them so that you know where to send that out to. And then once you get that all configured in here, underneath of a job or a customer, you're going to have this text message button here. So when you click on this, if you have the messaging option, the add-on available to you, you'll be able to either message your employee or your customer. We're going to stick with the employee for this one. The process kind of works basically the same way here, but we'd open up that option. We would see kind of a setup for it. You can check off who you want to send it to. So it'll list out all your technicians, and then you'll have the customer's name, and then you'll be able to put in your message just like Nori was doing there with his email functionality. So from here, you can also use the quick messages at the bottom to insert details for that technician. So if you're just trying to get them some contact information, most of that's already in here, but you can also add additional bits in here if you need that. So that's going to be the same functionality regardless of whether or not you have the paid module for this. And then you'd hit your send button, and then that'll go out to their device for you. Just like with the email functionality, it is going to drop a record back in your correspondence section here so that you can see that you text messaged your employee there to let them know about something that's coming up for them.
And I want to take a second to basically clear up some of the questions that I usually get around this time when I show that. So the way that that's functioning, and like I said, I do apologize, folks. We've enabled the texting add-on for this database, so I can't show you like the version that you have without the texting add-on. It works just fine though. You've probably seen it in training classes with us before. But you basically put in their number, so 555, whatever their number is, and then when you click on that little red check mark, it will give you the SMS gateways, is what those are. It'll say like at vtext.com, at whatever the gateway is. It might be in your other tab there. But with that being said, you have some options in there as far as what you want to pick. If you are in Canada, then there will be a little option you can click on that'll show you like everything, and you can view all the different Canadian carriers and stuff like that. They basically look like what Jess is pulling up here. All that's doing, and all that's really happening when you guys go to like send a text to somebody else, is it's just taking that number and that SMS gateway, that carrier, and sending that message to that. It's really an email that's going back and forth. That's how we're able to give it to you guys basically for free to text your employees there, is because as long as we have the phone number and the SMS gateway, well, we can send it out via email, and when your texts get that on their phones, it shows up as a text message because it'll be their number at Verizon or whatever it is. The other thing I usually get as a question for that: what happens if my tech replies to that message? Well, if the tech replies to that message, it just comes back to that email for some of the carriers. Not all of the carriers will understand what you're doing. I believe Sprint and Verizon, it will send back, if I'm correct. I don't know about all the other ones because, there's a huge list on your screen right now. I haven't tested them all out. But a good number of them will reply to that message, and it'll put it in your email as an email because that's who it's from, right? It's from your email account to their cell phone number. So if you reply to it, they don't get that reply back in Smart Service. You get it in your email, unless you have the texting add-on, and then that just opens up the regular like texting window, and you can converse back and forth with your tech that way. The texting window, though, that does not make the texting for employees free. That's covered by the standard message rates. If you do not have that texting add-on, then you guys are free to text your employees using that SMS gateway option.
That was pretty much all I had there. So we're going to switch back over to you so you can run them through the options for moving jobs around on the schedule there.
All right. So, folks, a couple other options here that I want to run you through. And I know we're getting close to our time here, but we'll definitely pick up some of these topics next time for sure. But I want to go over at least the moving the scheduled jobs really quickly, and the mobile workforce, because these are two we haven't done before in any other webinar.
Right.
But moving the scheduled jobs, super easy. You got two ways to do it. First off, if an employee gets is terminated or let go or whatever you want to call it, you can come into their employee profile. This option down here. I can say, take all the jobs from this person, move them over. So if I get let go and I want to send all my stuff over to Jess, then I would go ahead and click on his name. I hit this button, and it's going to confirm. It's going to confirm a bunch with you, and it's meant to do that. It's meant to be like, are you sure? because it moves any correspondences, any jobs, any of the to-dos, anything really with my name on it. It kind of pushes over to Jess as long as it's not history. You see it asks you, are you absolutely sure? So I'm going to go ahead and hit no on this. I don't want to actually do that. But that would move everything over. Now, let's say it's a little less severe than that. And, it's just a person's just sick for the day or they're out or something like that. So if somebody calls in sick, what I'd want you to do is go into your office screen. In the office screen, I want you to go down to post payments or post work orders. Read the wrong one. But you go down to post work orders in there. And in the screen, bring up whatever jobs you want to move. So, today, or do a custom date and pick one out, whatever you want. Filter to date scheduled, including complete jobs. Now, obviously, I want to grab this to, a very specific person. Let's just do me again. So there's my jobs basically that I have on my calendar. Well, down here, I can reschedule them to another date. So I can click and say, okay, we'll move them to tomorrow. That's fine. And I can keep them on me, or I can put them on somebody else. So I can move all those jobs to Luke, let's say. If I hit this reschedule button, it will move all the jobs that are on me for whatever date I picked out to this date for Luke. So that's a good way if somebody's sick or something like that. Just move everything over temporarily. Of course, you're free to move things on the calendar. You just click and drag and drop to whatever you want, really. But if I don't want to move like all of Luke's column here, there's 4 things to click on. Probably be faster to go the other way. All right, I'm going to hand things back over to Jess here. I do, like I said, want to take a quick look at mobile workforce and all the options there, just because that's something that we rarely have time to go over with customers. So let me move the things back to him and go for it.
Awesome. So some of you are probably familiar with the mobile workforce. I'm actually going to close out of it, and then we'll get like a fresh open of it so that it's not, somewhere where you wouldn't see, certain information. So when we open up mobile workforce, you're going to have the options over here on your left-hand side. Those options are going to be what we talk about here. So the first option is going to let you see basically the most recent set of GPS tracks that a technician would have left for you. So out in iFleet, as they're doing things in their iFleet device, there are going to be, basically a breadcrumb trail kind of dropped as they go for whatever tasks they do. And when they, hit their, clock in and out buttons, their time stamping buttons inside their jobs or finalizing, it's going to drop some of these pins on your map for you. So you can go back and kind of look to see, what's been going on with that technician. So if we click on that, that'll open up your browser. And then we can see that one technician, he's sitting here at My Service Depot. So that would be his most recent timestamp. So you can see there that came in at 12:29. So Nori hasn't really done anything with his iFleet device here recently, so it's just leaving it sit there. Now, you do have a couple of other options that I'm going to take you into here. So we'll jump over this workforce summary for just a moment. And I see a customer asking a question there. Scott, how far can you look back? Well, that's the next piece I'm going to show you here. So you can do the View Daily Summary. Click your blue button there. It's going to take you to the current date. So you can see here we've got our GPS tracks for that. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll have a drop-down that has all of the dates that you've had any GPS tracks sent back to your database. So you can really look back as far as you want. So I can go, just for example here, because I know we have some GPS stuff here on the 5th, I can switch to that, and we can see here, Nori created 15 different GPS tracks yesterday. So you can kind of go back as far as you need to, as long as your technicians have their location services turned on and they're actively using the application. So for this, we can actually go in here, we can click on that number under their GPS tracks. So if we click on that, again, that opens up a new web browser for us there because it's pulling in different information. But we can see here he had a couple of different GPS tracks kind of in the same area. And then he was, working his way along the road here. So we've got a couple kind of in between different stops. So you can click on the blue, vibrating blue icon there, and that'll drop you inside of your GPS tracks for that area. And then as you zoom out, it will let you go down and look at a different one here. So if we go down and look at this one, we can see that we've got some different stamps sitting in here. So we can see that, he did a few activities there right around the 25 mark this morning. And then underneath of that, if we zoom in a little bit further, we can see some more. So these are the most recent ones, plus one from this morning there. So another question that just came in from Keith, is the GPS tracking a separate module? Nope. As long as your technicians are using a device that can keep track of their location, so an Android tablet or phone or an Apple iPad or iPhone, as long as they have the location services turned on and iFleet is allowed to use those, it's going to send the stuff back to you at no extra charge or anything.
And I want to make a couple notes on that too. So to state the obvious, you must have cell service to use this function. When you guys connect to Wi-Fi, you still get GPS tracks, but really it's trying to approximate the location of the router. So if I sit here and I put my phone back on Wi-Fi and I sit in this building for a little bit, I'm going to have GPS tracks bouncing pretty much around our office in the same general area, but it'll look a little weird when you get up to it. So you definitely want to use this for cellular, when they're driving around or they're, going to work or something like that. A couple other things with that. We offer GPS breadcrumb tracking. This is something that comes with the software. It does have limitations, and I want to make sure everyone has the same expectations as our intentions when we make this stuff. So GPS breadcrumb tracking is not a live update system. It's not a check every 30 seconds kind of system. Just if he clicks on one of these GPS tracks for us here, can't tell how fast I'm going, what direction I'm going, and all that stuff. What the app does is if you have all the settings on, every 5 minutes while the app is in use, it will update with a location. It'll grab a GPS track. If they sync their device or perform an activity on that device, complete an activity on their device, it's going to send back that GPS track. But the whole reason it's called breadcrumb tracking is because it's not, live second to second updates. It's every 5 minutes. It's as they leave their breadcrumbs going throughout the city. So you need cellular service. It's not something you guys have to pay for to get the GPS tracking here. Your cell provider, if you need something, a little bit more advanced, or a lot of fleet vehicles need to be compliant with this or that GPS rules. You probably want to check out your cellular provider. Usually they have a package for companies and stuff like that to take a look at. That's usually pretty good and gives you like a 30-second thing. But this one here, pretty basic GPS, still cool though. The intention of why it's here is just to show you guys if those guys are stuck in traffic or if they're still at that last job, or if you drop a device and iFleet's running on it, we can look to see where that GPS pin is. But and to answer Keith's question here, you set the location services to be on while using the app is the option that we have. So this doesn't help you if iFleet's turned off. If they turn off iFleet, they throw that iPad in the trash and they go to lunch or something, I can't help you with that. What I can help you with is while they're using iFleet and they're performing their job normally, give you an approximation of where they are, or which direction they were heading.
Yep. So outside of the GPS stuff there, we've got a couple of other little items to look at in here. So we jumped from the real-time location-based services down to the workforce dashboard here. So in between there, you got your summary. So this is going to be a list of all your technicians that have jobs assigned to them. If they don't have any jobs, you won't see them sitting in here. So you can actually click on the blue arrow for that, and that will show you what's on their current device for you. And then inside of there, you have your different timestamps and things that your technicians have been doing. So you can see here we put in 17 minutes of travel, and then we were on site for 1 hour and 4. So this is kind of a summary of everything your techs have been doing, throughout that day, or as far back as 60 days, you'll have information in here. Now, these jobs will clear out as you guys do your office process and push your invoices into QuickBooks or move yourselves along in your reoccurring patterns if you're not directly invoicing for jobs there. So definitely keep that in mind. This screen will kind of change on a day-by-day basis depending on what you do at the office level. But outside of that, you have current condition options here. So current weather will take you over to the, I believe it's weather.com. And then you can put in your location, and then it'll give you your, it's basically just a quick link to your weather site there. And then current traffic conditions, that will pull up kind of a similar thing here. So this is something that Smart Service generates. It does a call out to the internet to see what your traffic conditions are, and then it'll give you an overview. So we can kind of see here, we got some stuff going on out towards Pennsylvania. We're in Pittsburgh. Everything in Columbus looks to be relatively smooth for right now. So this is really just for, at a glance, quick view, see what the traffic conditions are. If you're expecting a tech to be at a job site or something like that and they're not there, you can double check before you reach out to them. And then below that, you'll have your setup devices, device settings. This is something that's also available inside of your settings, your general settings back from the dashboard there. This is still going to be locked behind that permission. So if you don't have access to settings, you can't get into here and change these settings here, because this is what you want to have for all your defaults for your iFleet users and their device settings. So this is locked behind our permissions there. So that works basically the exact same way. You'll have all your different choices up here for how you want to configure iFleet for them. And then to kind of segue into that next section, the server sync interval. So we've got that set to 10 minutes. That's our default. That is the lowest default you can use. So just to make sure that we're not taxing your guys' computers or taxing the in-between server that sits between your smart service and iFleet, we have it set to kind of a mid-range there. You can increase that, but I don't really ever see any need to do that. 10 minutes is a good little measure there. Oh.
Yeah, and most of the time, guys, 10 minutes is fine. When you are sitting at your desk, 10 minutes is a long time. When you're driving or you're working on something, 10 minutes goes by pretty quick. So Jess is going to explain more about that, of course, but 10 is fine for most of the time, honestly.
Yeah, and if it's not, if you got to get something out there really quick, you can go down to the last section inside the mobile workforce where we have iFleet primary tests OK and the blue button. Before I dive into this, one thing I want to make note of here for you, if you ever see red text here and it doesn't say primary tests OK, you may see something like service web or something like that. That means that there's something either wrong with the service running on your server, the piece that sends all your information up to our server in the middle, or you might have a queue error or something like that. A technician sent something back and smart service didn't know how to handle it. So definitely keep an eye out for that periodically. If you're noticing that timestamps don't come back and things like that, that's going to be your indication to check your mobile workforce to see what's going on there. But once we get into that section, there's a lot of information in here. So really the main things that we want customers to kind of focus on and look for are your refresh options up here and your synchronizing button. So if you're trying to get something out to the device within a minute or so, you can do synchronize now. And then you can hit OK by clicking on it, or you can hit enter or space. Then it'll close that prompt. So that's initiating that sequence to send information out. So the job you just scheduled a minute ago is going to go out in another minute to that device. Sometimes it happens faster. It just depends on how quickly it can make that connection. You can do the refresh handset, so that'll refresh some of the information down here for you. Now, this stuff down here is for us. This is for the help desk team to kind of help you guys troubleshoot issues. So you may see some things down here. Typically, you can just disregard those unless you're working with a help desk technician. And then the refresh button here, this is going to make sure that this screen is up to date based on your server time. So you want to see your last validation time being within about a minute or so there. If you see this date and time in red, just hit your refresh, and then that'll update with whatever the system time has there for that. Then you'll be able to see, license counts and things like that, the website that we're calling out to. But again, that's all information that's for troubleshooting purposes. And then when I mentioned over here where we have the primary test OK, if you see that red, this section down here, your queue status message, that might be blank, which means it's processing something. So you may see it be blank. If you see a whole bunch of text in here, that's usually going to be an indication that you have a queue error, which means your technician sent back something to smart service and smart service didn't know what to do with it. Most commonly we see like inside of a number field there, like the rate for an item, they put in a letter or something like that. Smart service is looking for a number when that happens, so it'll throw an error in here. To clear that up, you do need to reach out to our help desk. They're going to have to run a query to fix that for you so that it'll clear everything out. And it can get backlogged. So, if you're noticing that, the last day or two's worth of timestamps and information aren't coming back from your iFleet, this is something to make sure that you double check just to see if it's, got some kind of error in it here. But that's pretty much everything that I've got here for the mobile workforce. We covered everything there. So I'll go ahead and pass back over to Nori here, and he'll close us up here.
All right. I wanted to answer one quick question for Scott here. Scott asked if the GPS stuff shows their route of travel between stops. Yeah, Scott. So if we go back here, we look at my GPS tracks. Basically, I'm driving, excuse me, I'm driving from here to here eventually. That's why I got the blue ones, because that's where I sat for a while. But these little guys along the way, we can follow the numbers. So see when I did that one, see when I did that one, and so on. So by checking the times on those, it kind of shows you how I was making my way downtown there. So that's what you want to look for. Your timestamps will tell you how much time they spent. So that'll be a different section here. This is just to show you where they were at a specific moment, essentially. But wanted to show you that. All right, guys, we are towards the end. I wanted to give you some more information here. Let me get you back over to our main screen. There we go. All right, a couple notes there for you guys here. Before you go, when you leave the webinar, it's going to ask you guys for a survey thing. I'll be straight up honest with you. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. We like doing the webinars. If you don't want to do the questions for the survey part, don't. We're fine with that, but give us some suggestions. I really want to know what you guys want to cover for these next time. We have a list of topics that we will bring up just because we know they're always valuable to customers. We always get a good audience from them. But you guys might have some better ideas. You might have some other things that we need to throw in the mix. We are happy to do that. These are primarily your idea for these webinars. Like I said, on average of 1.7% of our audience actually leaves a suggestion there. So if you feel like you want to talk about something, definitely feel free to. Like I said, training class wise, this would cost you a lot more money to do a training class to go over this information than it does to do the webinar, which is free, right? So definitely check it out. I've put some ideas on the screen there for some things that you guys might want to vote for, but come up with your own. Be creative. Put in stuff that you get frustrated with. Put in stuff you have questions or you just don't know about. Jess and I will cover it with you. Other than that, though, folks, let's get into our end slide. You can always visit this and any other webinar recording at smartservice.com/webinar. We'll have this broadcast up here, usually, like I said, tomorrow, usually 24 hours without behind the broadcast. So you can check this video out or show it to your friends. You've got smartservice.com/updates, where you guys can see the latest and greatest updates that have been put into Smart Service. Version 105 is live and ready to go out to everybody. If you guys would like a copy of version 105, we do ask, since there's such a large number of people that will call in for it at once, that you go ahead and email us at support@myservicedepot.com. That way we can manage the request. We can get back to you guys faster, basically, and give you directions on how to run the update. It's a very simple process. Really, all you need from us is the password and the link. And then you just hit next, put in the password, hit next, and you're done. But email us, support@myservicedepot.com, if you guys want to update to 105. Lastly, here you have smartservice.com/knowledge base. That is your online manual for Smart Service there. It's going to tell you everything you want to know about Smart Service. Definitely a great website. Jess and I manage that. If you see something that, or if you don't see something that you want on there, send us a message, let us know. We'll put it in the list of articles. It's something that he and I make when we're not in training classes and we're not too busy on the desk. We'll get in there and build articles, create little slides and graphics and all that stuff. Lastly, if you saw a lot of features in here that you had no idea about or a bunch of other cool things and you want personalized training, some one-on-one time, go ahead and give us a call at 888-518-0818. You'll be talking to either Jess or myself. We'd love to sit down with you guys and your team. We do record those videos. We send a copy of that video to you via Dropbox, so you get to keep a copy in case you missed a part, you didn't take notes or something like that. But let us know. We'd love to sit down with you, cover how we can make Smart Service better for your business. But that's it, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great one.